Hello and welcome to the lecture on Jenkins Fundamentals and Build Tools. My name is Prasanjit and I'll be taking you through what Jenkins CI process looks like, what Jenkins is, how to install Jenkins, what build tools it interacts with, and all the fundamentals that is required to learn Jenkins. Let's get started. So today we'll be talking about Jenkins Fundamentals and Build Tools. So Jenkins is a continuous integration tool. We'll talk more about that and what are the basic things that Jenkins deals with and what makes Jenkins. We'll discuss that, and we'll discuss about different build tools that Jenkins uses to make a deployment successful. By deployment, if we go back to our previous sessions, we know that whenever a code is written, that code is built to a binary, and that build is then tested and then finally deployed to a server which is live, so that the customers can see that software in that server. So this entire process is managed by this tool called Jenkins. Okay. So today our agenda will be to understand what Jenkins is, what that tool does, what are its capabilities, what are its limitations, like till how much it can do. It automates everything doesn't mean that you just write a few lines of code to automate and Jenkins will do a magic. There is no magic here. Whatever will be done, it depends upon our programming. Okay. Jenkins is just a platform which will allow you to do the continuous integration and continuous delivery. And this particular session is just the beginning to understand Jenkins. You will have, I think, 2 more sessions which will complete your understanding of Jenkins. So today is just a primer, like you will know how to install, how to work on Jenkins, how to create jobs and things like that. Then there will be some advanced sessions later on where you will know how to create a Docker image, how to build using different build tools, how to use the test automation, test cases, and apply it to a pipeline. And then finally you will understand how to create a complete CI/CD pipeline from end to end, like right from the time the developer writes code to the time the entire thing is deployed on the production environment. So that will be your entire journey to understanding Jenkins. But today we'll just begin by doing the basics, installing it and understanding how to upgrade it. Then we'll understand the workflow of Jenkins, like what happens in Jenkins, how to define that workflow, and from then on whatever we do, we'll do it on Jenkins. And then once Jenkins is installed, we'll try some basic operations, like how to work with Jenkins, what does it do, how to create users, how to create jobs, how to execute jobs, and so on. And then finally, if all these steps work fine, then we will create a simple continuous integration pipeline. By continuous integration pipeline, I mean someone will write code and put it on GitHub, and then the code will automatically be pulled by the Jenkins. So first, let's revisit few things which we have also discussed earlier. That will help you understand Jenkins. So what does this guy do, Jenkins? It allows you to build software. Okay. Build software in the sense, I told you some programming languages required to be compiled. If you have read some basics of computer science, you might have heard about 2 types of languages. One is interpreted language, one is a compiled language. So interpreted language, for example, a shell script or a DOS bat file, any simple script which does not, which is just written line by line of programming and executes something. That kind of a language is called an interpreted language. And when you require to build something, and only then it works. For example, any Microsoft Windows executable, it's a exe file. If you right click and open it on a notepad, you won't be able to see any programs there. It is a binary and compiled into a exe. So those kind of programs, or a jar file, when you write a Java program, the program itself cannot be executed unless you build it into a compiled jar file. So that jar file will run a program. Or Android, if you build it into a Android program is written in Java, and then when you build it into a APK, that APK is installed, and then only you will be able to run that APK. Run that app. So these kind of programming languages where a compilation is needed to create a binary and only then it can be run are called compiled languages. So for this kind of programming you will need a build step. Okay, now what is this Maven thing? For building there are other tools. So Maven is a tool that is used to build JavaScripts. So Jenkins allows you to build using Maven. Jenkins allows you to do version control using Git. So these are the different tools with which Jenkins can collaborate to make your entire CI/CD pipeline work. Again, I'm telling you, like, all these things might not make sense to you now, but it will keep making sense to you as soon as you move on to further classes. Now, if I talk about Git, it is making a bit of sense to you because you know what it is. There was a code in a folder of a developer. Now we have moved it to a repo. From that repo, Jenkins will take the code and do whatever it wants. So now we know, okay, how to put the code from this to GitHub version control system, and from GitHub Jenkins will be connected to do the rest of the steps. Similarly, when you learn how to build, these two things will make sense to you. Okay, what is Maven and how build is done? So once build is done and you move on to know what is testing and how Selenium tools are used to do testing, it will make sense to you. Then you will know about config management and Puppet, Ansible. These kind of things help you to do the configuration management. So slowly the chapters will open for you and you will feel more and more comfortable with the topic. For now, you just remember that Jenkins is allowing us to do a CI/CD, like continuous integration and continuous deployment, which is the one of the main fundamentals of DevOps. And for that, it interacts with different tools like Git, Maven, Selenium, Puppet, Ansible, Nagios for monitoring, and so on. So this acts as a common platform for different tools to integrate and work together. Okay, so basically a developer or a DevOps person will just have to go to Jenkins, and inside it, it has some dashboards which is already connected to various other systems that allows you to have a single point of like contact, and then you go there and deploy different things. Like, you don't have to go to GitHub anymore after you know Jenkins. So this one, why I was teaching you Git and GitHub, because you have to know about this to connect to this. But once you are connected, you don't have to go anywhere and run that command anymore, because that is the thing developers will do. You create their workflow here. So we will know everything, but in the end, you will be only operating from Jenkins mostly. So that's why this makes Jenkins more important for a DevOps practice. Then next is, this slide is just to make you revisit the Jenkins workflow. This we have discussed in the previous topics also, but just to revisit so that you don't miss out on the steps. A coder writes code that is happening in the development phase. So this is a pipeline. Pipeline means a sequence of steps that leads from the beginning to the end. Okay, so the beginning is writing of code and the end is putting that final ready software in the production server or Play Store or wherever your end product goes. Okay, so this entire journey is the workflow which happens in Jenkins. So what happens, just let's revisit this. You have to put all, this entire flow in your brain, like because being someone from a DevOps practice, a pipeline, CI/CD pipeline is something that should become your second nature. Like, anyone asks you the steps, you always tell, like, first what happens, a person writes code, he develops code, like he improves his code and commits it to Git. Okay, and this cycle goes on until he deploys. Like first he writes code, puts in Git, then again does some more improvement, puts in Git. This is going on till now. Jenkins is not in the picture, but as soon as he commits his code and to the development branch, we also read about the branches. So as soon as he commits to development branch, if he commits to his local repo, no problem. But once he pushes, like you commit with a comment and then you push. Remember the steps for a version control system: write code, save it, then you add that code, git add, then you do the git commit, then you do the git push. So as soon as you do a git push to a particular environment, for example, let this guy do it to the dev environment, so then it triggers a pipeline that we'll learn today how it happens. There are multiple ways to happen for it to happen. So that triggers a pipeline. This pipeline then builds the code. If it is Java, it will build into a jar file. If it is Android, it will build a APK. If it is some other software, it will, like C++ or C sharp, it will build a exe executable file or any other binary. And once those binaries are built, it goes to a test phase. Once the test phase is over, it goes to a staging environment or a staging phase, and then it gets deployed to any other environment of production. So this total flow is called a continuous integration and a continuous delivery. So that's the workflow Jenkins works in. Like Jenkins always follows this workflow. If you are following DevOps, people make exceptions, like those who do not follow correct DevOps practices. They'll do, like they have a Jenkins, but they do not build all the softwares using Jenkins. They might do something manually and half of the things are in Jenkins. These kind of organizations exist in real world. But that is the challenge. Like as DevOps, we keep on trying to move everything in a workflow so that everything is automated. Nothing has to be done manual. Okay, so this is the way in which Jenkins works. The different phases from development to productions are commit, build, test, stage, and then deploy. So that's it about Jenkins. And this is a more granular diagram of the same thing. So today I'll just give you a basic idea of this, but we will revisit this again. As I said, there are two more sessions about CI/CD and containerization. So when we do that, this will make more sense to you, like what are the different test cases and all. But why I'm introducing this concept to you, so that you are already aware of what is going to come. So as you know, from development we have to reach production. That is the goal. And in between there are various workflows that happen in Jenkins to make that code good enough to go to production. Like the code is transformed into uh, a product, okay, a software product. So that, because code is the raw material, it goes being tested, it's built, and finally it's staged and goes to production. So in between whatever happens is the Jenkins workflow, and this workflow is making a finished product out of your raw code. So it begins with this flow chart. So start means the developer has the code ready and he commits it to the SCM, source code management. SCM stands for. So it's same as whatever, like the version control management. So some people call it source code because that's the source code in literal sense, because you're writing a code and that is the source from where the software will be built. So this is SCM commit, means the source code has been committed to a repo or a branch. So that goes to GitHub in our examples. So then as soon as it goes to GitHub, the Jenkins workflow starts. So what Jenkins does is does a checkout of the code that is called a SCM checkout. So what does checkout means? It pulls the code from the GitHub or your version control management tool and puts it into the Jenkins workspace. Like in Jenkins, a new folder is created for that particular project, and it pulls the code from your repo and keeps it here. It is same as what we do when we run the git clone command. Remember, when we create a repo and I want it on my laptop, I'll do a git clone URL, so it comes to my repo. Similarly, Jenkins does a checkout with so that means it clones that particular branch and repo. So that is one phase that is over, and we'll do this today. And then once this phase is over, it collects various dependencies if required for building these artifacts. Like for example, if I am writing Java code and I have to build a jar file out of it, I'll need some dependent artifacts to be pulled from external environments. Okay, so let me give you a small example of what it is. For example, you might have seen when installing certain softwares, it tells you to install JDK first and then install that software. Like when you're installing that software, it says cannot install, requires .NET framework version 4.0. You might have seen these kind of errors. Like when you're installing, you get an error and it says .NET framework, this version is missing. Please install and try again. So that means that software requires some dependencies. So then you go and search .NET framework, install it, and then install the software, and it works. Similarly, so these are all dependencies that might cause a mismatch. So Jenkins checks the code out, checks what are the dependencies and collects them automatically, and then moves on to the next phase where your code is built and launched using a Docker or any other tool. So this will come later, like when we do the build phase. Today we'll do this much, like creating a Jenkins workflow, check out the code and get ready for build. So when you learn more about builds, and then we'll do the deployment part and have the test cases there, then how many types of test cases and how do they run. So all this comes in the workflow later on. So some test cases run in parallel, some can run linearly, like it requires test 1 to finish in order to run the test 2. So these kind of things happen, and then once the test results are passed, then it goes to the deployment phase and Jenkins job is over. So that is how the Jenkins workflow goes on. So as we go on moving ahead in the pipeline, so this complete picture will become clear. But I just wanted to introduce you to the entire Jenkins workflow so that you know what is going to come when we are going to do our further sessions. So this is what we are going to do. We'll learn what Jenkins is, we'll learn the phases, like how to collect the code, how to collect dependencies, how to build them, how to test them, and finally deploy them. And when we learn the entire thing, so you will be equipped with some knowledge to deploy any software on a production environment automatically. So you know how that is done. So wherever you go, every company will have their different, a bit of differences in this workflow. Someone would be testing only once, someone has multiple test cases. In certain companies, they stop the pipeline, do the test manually, and then move on to the next phase. So these kind of small changes will be there, and that evolves, continuously evolves. For example, you land up in a company where they do not have automation testers, so no one is there to write test cases. So in that case, you have no option but to skip this stage. So you will do this and build it, and then send a notification to your testing team that build number this is ready, do your testing and trigger this job again. So these things can be done. Like DevOps practices are very open to modifications also. So it's not that the company doesn't has a automation tester, that doesn't mean that DevOps pipeline will fail, because you don't have test cases. You cannot just blindly pass it on to deployment. So there you can write your pipeline in such a way that after build it stops and sends a mail or alert to the test team. So once they test it manually and push it back again, then the deployment happens. If they find a failure, then it stops there and they send a feedback to the development. So it comes back again until it's passed. So that is how Jenkins workflow works, and that is how CI/CD works. So now we will move to installing Jenkins and trying out things. Okay. So let me exit out of here and let's start the virtual box. Okay, so this is the virtual box. Let me tell you, like, give you a few tips on using this one before we move on to install Jenkins here. So we had created a virtual box image and installed Ubuntu Linux on it. So that one was done. Now our next step will be to install Jenkins. So what I would suggest, you stop your image, like you stop your virtual machine, and you can name it base image, and we will not do anything on this image anymore, because that had a freshly installed Ubuntu, and we can reuse that image to do whatever new exercises we do, so that we will always get a fresh server without any issues. Because maybe we made some mistake while running certain installations, and next time we do something and it will break our newer softwares and confuse us. So stop that instance, take a clone out of it, and do your current exercise on that clone, and then you can destroy that or keep it. So it's up to you. So that will help you to create a fresh server every time and work on it. Okay, that will make uh, you less error prone. So how do we do that? Just right click, clone. So it will create a new virtual machine of the same Ubuntu. You don't have to install anymore. Password, everything will remain same. Just change the name. Like today we'll do Jenkins. So we name that server Jenkins. So whatever new server will become, that server we'll use instead of the old one. Okay. So Jenkins, continue, full clone. So it takes the entire image and creates another server. If you do a linked clone, it creates another server, but the hard disk is of the old image. So then again, there would be problems. So if you store any file in the old one, that will show up in the new one. If you delete something in the new one, the old one will get destroyed. So don't do a linked clone, do a full clone and clone it. Like, this is not a part of Jenkins. I'm just telling you so that it will make it, I mean, it will be easier for you to work with new tools, because next time you will do Docker. So getting Docker installed and everything on the same server won't be a very good idea. Okay, so Jenkins is, we have a server where we can install Jenkins. Before we launch the server, do one more thing. Because these Jenkins and these servers are virtual machines, and these are web-based app, like Jenkins works on a what do you call it, on a browser. It's a browser-based web app. So we will need the IP address of this virtual machine to open the page of Jenkins. So now I have this Jenkins thing running. Now let me go into the screen. Our username was DevOps and password was also DevOps. You can name it whatever you like. So now once we log in, we should see a command prompt. Okay, so normally the first command I do is go sudo -i. This makes me a root user. Normally you should not do this, but because we are DevOps and we are installing stuff, so we have to do this. What does this do? It makes you a root user. Root user in Linux is the administrator. Like just like in Windows, you have an administrator who can install things and all. But if you do that installation as a normal user, it asks you for a password again every time, like password of administrator to install it. So similarly in Linux, if you do it as a normal user, like we logged in as a DevOps, so if we do it just like that, it will ask us for a root access to do things. So that would be a problem every time it's asking you, because we will install things, we know. So that's why, since you are the DevOps guy and you are responsible, you can safely do it as a root, provided you know what you are doing. So that's why. So sudo -i, this command makes me a root user. So you can see, as soon as I did move into as a root user, the prompt has changed to a hash. You can see root@Linux server 01, then that hash in the end. Whenever you see a hash here, normally you understand that this is an admin user. But in the beginning, when we logged in, we were seeing a dollar prompt. Just keep in mind, like, let me show you again. See, I logged out using the logout command, and now you can see DevOps@this. This is the normal user. It has a dollar prompt. That means it doesn't have privileges. It can run commands, but simple commands. So in order to run administrative commands, we do this and we become a root or administrator. Okay, you can even check like who you are by this command. So it says you are root. So that means we are the administrator. Let me clear the screen. Now, this is not very convenient to work from this terminal, because you cannot copy paste commands and stuff like that. So it's better we use a terminal to connect to the server, because this same situation will happen when you have your server running on a cloud. For example, if you run a VM, or you run a EC2 instance on Amazon cloud, then it'll give you IP address and a key to log in, but you will need your terminal to log into that server. It doesn't have a terminal like VirtualBox where it will allow you to log in. So in order to handle that, how do we log in using a terminal? Let me show you, so that we can do things easily. So you can write this command IPA. It will show you the IP address. What is the IP address of this system? It is the second one. Like the first one, LO, is nothing. Like if you see one LO, that is a loopback. That is just an internal address. But look at the second one, ENP0S3. This is the the network card, and the IP address would be that number 192.168.0.180. That is the IP address of the server. Similarly, you go to any server, you will see the IP address something in these lines. The number can change. Somewhere it will be 10.10. something /32 or whatever. So here, so just get a hang of it, how to identify what the IP address is. Okay, so the command is IP space A. There is another command, ifconfig, that also gives you the IP address, provided this command is installed. Normally it's not there, but see, it says that you install this nettools so that this command will work. So that is not our problem. We don't need to install this one now, because we have another command, IP space A, to get the IP. So we know the IP address is 192.168.0.180. How do we connect to that server? So when you are using a Mac or a Linux, you can go to terminal. So I just write terminal and I open my terminal application. I use this terminal called iterm. So this item opens. But when you're using a Windows, you will use a tool called putty. That's why I asked you to install that tool, like download that tool. So it does the same thing what I'm going to do here. So if you click on that putty, it will give you a screen where it asks you for the IP address. So you just put the IP address and press OK. Then it will open a black screen like this. Okay. And ask you for the username and password. So it is as simple as that. But in Linux and Mac, you do it this way. You write SSH. SSH stands for Secure Shell. No need to worry if you don't remember these things right now because it's being recorded, so it will be there. You can just follow this and try it on your own. Okay. And if you're using putty, you don't have to write that SSH also. There you just click on that icon. It opens up a page where it asks you for the server address. So you put the address and press OK, and then it gives you another screen, black screen like this, which is directly asking you the username. Type in the username, then it asks you for a password, type the password, and you're logged in. But in this one, we will do SSH IP address 192.168.0.180. I think it was. Let's verify. So yes, it was 192.168.0.180. Okay, I forgot one thing. You can directly put your username like this. Username @ this. So that will log in that username to that server. So it's asking me the password. Our password was DevOps, so I'm typing it. It doesn't show the password when you're typing in. So we are logged in into that same Linux server. So it is as good as this. Why I did not do it here? Because it does not allow me to copy paste things from outside. So for example, if I need some commands to be pasted, I won't be able to go in here. So having a terminal allows me to do that easily. And why will I need copy paste? Because to install Jenkins, there are some commands which you don't need to remember. Like there are some, you have to download Jenkins from this location. So this might change later on. So no need to just, no need to remember these things. You will just use these commands and paste it on those terminals to install it. Okay. So here are the installation steps. Step one, there are two ways, as I said. One is the non-Docker way, which we are doing today. There is another way to do it using the Docker. We'll do it when we know Docker. Like when we learn Docker, then we'll do this again using Docker. So in the production, it is your choice. But normally people do it on a non-Docker way because it is more stable. But Docker can too be stable, but you have to provide enough resources for that to be stable. So better to do it on a non-Docker way when you are doing on a VM in production. So we are concentrating on how to do it on production. So that's why we are doing it on Linux. So just follow the steps that I'm doing. So to begin with, we are logged into the server. So let me clear screen again to make things better. So first command would be this, as I told you, because I don't want to keep on writing sudo before every command. So that that makes it will prompt for passwords and all if you do not use a non-root user. So you can do this safely and log out. So first of all, we are logged in as root, then begins our installation. So first you have to install Java. Now you have to install Java 8 for the current version of Jenkins. So that's why this. In future, it might change. So how will you know like what will happen? When you install Jenkins, it will throw an error like this is not compatible with Java 8. In future, like say in 2021, you are installing Jenkins, and at that time Java 8, 9 has come across and Jenkins has a new version, then it will throw errors. So seeing those errors, you know, okay, it will throw errors like Java 8 is not compatible, install Java 9. So if these kind of things happen, then you know like what to do. So first step is installing JRE. So we are installing Java environment, runtime environment, and that will help us to uh, do the installation of Jenkins later on, because we discussed earlier Jenkins is written in Java language, so it needs a Java environment to run. You can write sudo before the start of a command if you are not logged in as root. Okay, but if you are logged in as root already, so you can skip sudo. Okay, even if I write sudo here, no harm. Sudo is just reminding this, like this has to be run as a super user. So we are already a super user, we can avoid this, or even if you copy paste, no harm. So you can do it, like it's up to you. So first is we are trying to install this. It is waiting for some process which is already running. This normally would not happen. If it happens in your case, let's do some troubleshooting also, because some upgrade is going on in the server in the background. So that's why it's happening. So if your server is upgraded like already, then this would not happen. So we can do one thing, we can kill that process, or we can wait till that upgrade is completed. Okay, it's showing that this installation is logged because there is some upgraded going on, unattended upgrade going on in the background. Okay, these things happen in Linux, like sometimes packages are getting upgraded. Why it happened in our case, it was because we were we just installed a new system. Okay, so it takes some time to settle down for getting the upgrades, connecting to the internet and all those stuff. But if it is I mean, if we do it the tomorrow again on the same server, leave it running for the some time to complete the upgrade, then it would not ask. But if we are in a hurry, we can try one thing. We can kill the process. Just want to verify what that process is. It says there is a process running called unattended upgrade. So I can kill that process. So, and I check again, that is gone. So these are certain commands, like you can do it, but it would have been a good practice to get that upgrade completed. If you are on a production, do not do this. So this is just a test system, so I did this, but it is good to have the upgrade done. It is same as what you do in Windows. You remember Windows, sometimes there is the Windows system upgrade going on and it asks you to wait until that upgrade is finished, then only you can log in. So this is the same thing that was happening when you have a new operating system. It was trying to connect to the original repositories and do some upgrades, but unfortunately we were cruel and we killed it. Okay, so let's go back and run our command, because now we have killed this, so there would not be any lock. So now you see it says that to install Java, so many packages and dependencies are needed. Do you want to continue? I would write yes. Why? Okay, and enter. So now it is installing the packages. All this can be done on a graphical Linux also, like you install a GUI based Linux and do it. But we will not do it that way, because in a server environment in production, you will not see a graphical interface. So you have to do it this way, because if you learn the graphical way, it's very easy, but in the end, you will suffer when working in a company. So it's just these few commands. You have the steps here. You can open this from anywhere you like. That's why I put it on the GitHub. You can later on clone this repo when the repo is complete. It's still in work in progress because I just started putting up these things. So you can later on fork it. If you fork it, the same copy will come to your GitHub account. So then what happens, even if I delete it sometime later or whatever, you will have your copy of that repo. Or you can watch this repo so that whenever I make any change or add something new, you will get an alert on your GitHub that something new has been added. For example, like this, I got some alert that there is a vulnerability here or whatever keeps on happening. These things will come to your screen. So if you will follow this repository, then it will give you the alert there that time, or you can fork it to have a copy of that in your own repo. So let's go back. So first step is this. We just copied and pasted and it's installing the JRE. It'll take a while because it's downloading many things to install. And once that is downloaded, it will install it. Here you can see the progress. So everything is happening on the command line mode. Once Java is installed, we will configure Java. Like this step is optional. In our case, I think this won't be needed, but I'll just run this step to show you like what it does and why, when it will be needed. That's why I kept this step, because otherwise you will encounter a problem when you are doing it on a production system that already has Java. Okay, there are certain servers which have Java already. So then this becomes a problem. Like for example, in a production server, there is already Java 7 installed there. And now someone gave you that server and said that, okay, use this server to install Jenkins. So now you know that you need Java 8 on Jenkins, and you ran this command. So now that server has Java 7 and Java 8 both. So now when you install Jenkins, how will Jenkins know which Java to use? Okay, so then it will throw errors. So this step allows you to choose which Java to use by default. So when we run this command, if it sees more than one Java, it gives you an option that this is the Java 7, this is Java 8. Press like choose which one to use. So then you will choose. Just like we choose like whether to proceed yes or no. Similarly, it will ask you Java 7 or Java 8. So then you will choose one and go and install that one. So next time when you move on with the Jenkins installation, it won't ask any question and then go ahead with Java 8. So that's the logic behind this command. But if in our case we have a fresh server and we have one Java only, so then it will just say that nothing to choose because already Java is there and only one version is there. So that is the thing. So coming back here, you can see the every installation was done. Okay, so it added all the packages and so on. So we don't have to go between the lines. It is just the package, dependencies, keys, and all the stuff that is needed. So only thing we remember is we had to run this command. Okay, and that upgrade thing which I did, killing that process, that would not normally happen. Just give it some time to get upgraded. Like run that VM, leave it for 1-2 hours, and it will upgrade itself if it is a new VM. Or you can kill it like I did. But remember, this kill command, this PID will be different in your case. So whatever error comes in that screen, pick that PID, process ID from that screen and kill it instead of just copying my command, because 1055 was the process ID of that upgrade service running in my system. And this also gives you one advantage of Linux, like you have the liberty to tweak things. Just imagine if an upgrade was going on in Windows, you did not have the capability to kill it. because it won't allow you to log in. So I'm not saying this is a good thing to not to upgrade, but I'm just talking about the abilities you get when you use Linux. Okay, so let's clear the screen again so that it will be visible. So now first command is done. Which command? This one. How I am getting the previous commands? I'm pressing the up arrow. So in Linux, if you do the up arrow, you get the previous commands. If you do the down arrow, you come back to your original. So we ran this command, installed, clear the screen, and then we are ready for the next command. Next command was choosing the Java. So we have just one Java, so we don't have a problem. So it says there is only one and nothing more to do. So we are good. To verify, we can run this command, Java is installed or not, and it will also show us the version. So 1.8, so that's why it's called Java 8, and it's done. So we have a Java installed here. If there is an error after this command, that means Java installation failed, and then you will have to try it again. Okay. But normally with this particular Ubuntu version and whatever command I am running, it should work fine with you. If it doesn't, then come back to me again. I'll help you resolve like what is the Linux version you are using and all. But use the latest versions, you won't get into errors. Okay, so this step is done. Now to install Jenkins, we need a key to authenticate it. So just copy and paste this command. This adds a key. It downloads a key from Jenkins to your server. So now Jenkins server knows that you are going to install Jenkins with a license. So I am saying like this is an open source. So you just need a open source, this key thing to be installed, so that it gets it gets logged in as a authenticated Jenkins server. You don't have to pay anything for this as it is open source software. So the key is installed. Now we can add the repository. What is that? This repository is not GitHub or anything. This is a repository of Jenkins binary. For example, you want to install say Atom editor or Notepad or whatever, you went to a certain path to download that thing. So this is the same thing happening here. Because this is graphical, you are not going on a browser to do this. We are adding a repository and we are added a key so that next time it will be able to download automatically and install it. Okay, so it will install Jenkins on its own when you add a repository. So for you, just remember, I have to run these commands to install Jenkins. So now this one will take some time again to get the repositories added and updated. Once this step is done, then we will do the real command. Actually, this command will install Jenkins, but these are the prerequisites. So it is preparing the server for installing Jenkins. So once the repo is added, we'll run this command and install the Jenkins. And then we'll start the Jenkins process. Once the Jenkins is started, then we'll try working with this. Now, step 3 is optional, depends upon your server. So I don't think this will be required in our case. Some servers which have this firewall installed in it will not have Jenkins visible. So in those servers, this step will be needed. So let me add optional there. I included all the steps so that in case you fall into, you've come up with a situation where your server has a firewall and it's not, Jenkins is not opening up, then you will use this. We'll come to this step. Let's do this step 2 and then I'll tell you what that step is for. Okay, so here this command completed. Wait till the next prompt comes up. As you see the next prompt is there, then you know the previous command is successful. Okay, so again we clear screen. I clear screen by writing clear or Control L. So if you do Control L, also the same thing happens. So this step is complete. Now the main thing, this step is to install Jenkins. So again it's asking yes or no. We want to install, so yes. Now it will download the Jenkins, check the keys which we added earlier. If it is matching and everything is fine, then it will install Jenkins successfully. It will also check whether Java is there or not. And Java is already there, so it will work. You can even try, like don't install Java and try this step will fail. You will install Jenkins, but in the end it will not start. So then you will face an error. So that's why this sequence is also important. Like step 1, step 2, step 3. If you do step 2, you will install Jenkins. Like if you do this step, in step 1, if you install Jenkins command directly without doing Java, then you will face an error and so on. So go top down. So this one, and then we start the service and so on. Okay, this is still going on. It depends upon your network, how fast your network is, how fast your system is. So if it is a very high power server, then it becomes fast. Okay, for now it is done because we got this prompt. So we are good. Clearing screen again. Next command will be starting the service. So this is the command. This sudo is optional, as I said, because we are already root. So you run this command, it starts the Jenkins. In order to verify Jenkins is running or not, you can do this status. So it says it's active. That means it's good. Jenkins is running. Another command, it's not mentioned in that notes. You can run this command to verify Jenkins is listening on a port or not. Jenkins works on port 8080. I'll tell you what it is. If you do this, you should see this 8080 and running as a Java process. So just run this command to verify. If you don't see this, that means Jenkins did not start properly. And even here it will show as failed. I can even demonstrate that to you. For example, I stop Jenkins. And if I run that command 8080, you don't see anything. So that means Jenkins is not running. So if Jenkins is running, you will see it listening on a port. What is that port 8080? You will see in a while. So now you can see, is it running? Still not up. Let's see the status. Says active. It might take a while to start up, that's why. So it comes up. So now 8080 is up, means we will be able to view Jenkins on that port. Now you go to your browser, write the IP address of your server. What is my server IP address? 192.168.0.180. I think that was the IP. You can verify again if you want from here. Going into the terminal and do IPA. You see the IP address 192.168.0.180. Write the same IP here, and the port. Port is what I was talking about. That 8080 thing, that is called the port. So in that particular IP and on that particular port, Jenkins is running. And give a slash and then press enter. So that will open the Jenkins server on your browser. And give it time. Don't rush or keep on refreshing, because I did not refresh it even once. Because if you refresh, it does the same process again. First time installation, have some patience. Run it, wait till you get this screen. It will open on its own. You don't have to do anything. Okay. So just start the Jenkins service, wait, open the IP and the port here on the browser, wait for it. It will load very slowly. It will load. First time loading takes time, but from then on, once Jenkins is installed, you will have it fast. And if it is a server on a cloud with lots of memory and CPU, then it will go blazing fast. Here, why is it slow? Because we have a laptop, inside it one VM box, inside it Ubuntu, inside it Jenkins. So we are nesting so many layers, and our memory is 8 gigs. So that's why it might take a while, but normally would not happen. And if your laptops have 16 gigs, it will be a bit faster, because these are all resource heavy applications. Like Java applications take a lot of resources. So because these are production applications, they are very robust also. Okay, so first step, to ensure Jenkins is securely set up, password has been written on the log, then and this file on the server. Please copy the file and get the password and paste it here. So this is what we have to do. So it is saying in a Linux server, the password is in this path. Like in Windows, you have C program files, some path. So similarly in Linux, you have a front slash, and so just copy this, whatever is written on this red color. Go back to your terminal. Write cat. Cat will show the contents of a file. So write cat and paste. That's why I move to the terminal to copy paste and all. So you write cat and paste it. Inside the file, there is a key written. This key is unique. So you have to put it to verify that this is your server. Because if this is not your server, someone else goes and puts the key and sets up a password there on Jenkins, he will be able to take control of your system. So this is a process for security. Like, because you are able to see the contents of the file means you are able to log into this server. So that means you have the power of the administrator to check anything. So cat this will show some numbers. Copy that number and paste it here. Okay, no need to save it now because we will reset the password. We cannot remember that big password. So we'll reset it once we log in. Here it's asking, do you want to do any customization? No need to do anything. We will do this once we start working with Jenkins. So better don't do it now, so you won't get the opportunity to learn. Because if I install everything here now, then you won't know why I am doing this. Okay, so whenever we will have an error, I want you to face the errors, and then when you see the errors, you then start doing the solution. Because if I do everything properly, I know which to install and I will install everything. And when you deploy, you won't see any errors. But when you do it on your own, you will see errors again. So for now, just do the default suggested plugin. No need to do anything on your own. So just click there. It starts doing things on its own. So what it does, it actually installs some dependent softwares. So let it do. And wait for, again, some time. It depends upon how fast your internet will download these packages and install it. So this is preparing our Jenkins server. And all these activities are one-time activities. Like every morning you will not go and install a Jenkins. This will be done once, and then you will be just working on your pipelines every day, not working on your Jenkins server. Because server is set up, you got the user ID password, you gave the user ID password for different accounts that were created to the developers. So they log into Jenkins, do their work, you log into Jenkins to do your work. Your work would be to define the pipelines, create various stages, put the automation scripts in place. Their work will be just to deploy the code and trigger the jobs. So this is how Jenkins will work. So let this installation get started. Then we will do, I'll show you around the Jenkins, and then we'll create one test pipeline and run it. I know we'll cross our time limits, but let's get this done so that we have everything, at least installation to one job creation in one recorded video, so that that will be, I mean, it will have a good continuity. So then from next we can go ahead and do the pipelines. So today we'll just get it done. It should take another 10-15 minutes to complete everything. Like once the installation done, I'll tell you how to reset the password, where to create users, where to install plugins, how to create a job, how to connect to GitHub. So these steps are left. Okay, so it's a good news here. So we have the installation done. So it is asking, do you want to create a user? So let's create a user and name it admin. You can give it your own name also, but as a professional, if it is for a company, I would suggest don't always name it on yourself, because you are creating a product which people might use after you leave that company. Or so it's professional to name it as admin or a DevOps user 01, something like that. That is a good practice instead of giving it your name. And then password, I'm just writing DevOps as the password. But for a company account, you give a password. These are optional steps. If you want, we can give it, but I'm just writing this. Just anything I'm writing, and then save and continue. Okay, this password I can save so that we don't have to type it next time. It tells that the Jenkins URL will be this. We already know it, and we finish. Okay, so now we have a Jenkins installed, and we are ready to use it. That would be enough for today's session, because that's the agenda. Then we move on to do a bit complex things. So then we will come across these things: how to create a view, how to make tweaks in manage Jenkins in this portal, and so on. So now what we will do, we create a new job. So either you can click this one, or this one will disappear once one job is created. So at other times you will just click on this one, new item. Okay, so if I do this or do this, the same thing will happen. This is only the first time you get this link, but if I click this one, it's the same thing. So let's go with this, because we'll be always doing this one. Okay, so it's asking write an item name. So what is the item, like the job name we want to give? So let me tell you our plan. So what we will do is, we'll go to GitHub. You remember we created a repo last time, that free that repo for learning Git. So this example website. So for example, you have a place where some code is there. Okay. Wow, the spelling is wrong. Oh, I'm not signed in. So what we'll do is we'll just try to connect this repository to our Jenkins so that the build process will trigger. So this is our task today. So we will create a job to take this example website to Jenkins. So you create give it a name. You can give the job any name. Normally, whatever is the repo name, the same is the job name, so that people can understand what that job is. Now there are various options to choose. Freestyle project means nothing is defined. You do it everything yourself. Pipeline, that means you write some code to define the pipeline. This is a bit advanced, which we will do later on. Configuration project, for configuration management. We are not doing this now. We are just checking out a website. Then folder, it just creates a new folder on your Jenkins so that you can segregate things. Like you can create a production folder, inside it the production jobs will be there, and so on. So even we are not doing this now. Github organization, this allows you to connect to GitHub. Okay, scans a GitHub organization for all repositories and connects to it. So these are those steps, and this is a multi-branch pipeline. Here also, this is an advanced pipeline where one pipeline will have different environments like development, production, staging, and all. Using one pipeline, you can define where to deploy. Like while starting that pipeline, you can declare deploy this to this environment. So all these are advanced things which we will come to later. First, we'll do the freestyle project where we have to configure everything ourselves to know like what is going on. So we'll choose name something, write a freestyle project, just choose it, click it, and okay. So this brings us to the another screen where it will ask us, okay, this is the name of the project, but where do I get this project from? Then we'll provide the information that this project is in GitHub. This is the repo address. You remember we had a repo address here, this address. So we'll provide that this is the GitHub repo address for example website. So you go and check it out from here. So then it will connect to GitHub and check out this. So let the dashboard open. You might be feeling like this takes time, but normally it doesn't take time. It's due to the virtual box or maybe my laptop, that's the reason. But it will not take this much of a time to load a page. Okay, on a real environment where Jenkins is installed, it will be like take a second or two to open a page. Nevertheless, it's fine, like we are able to work on it, no problem. So first is the description of a project. Just we can write an example website to check continuous integration or something, to demonstrate. So we did this. Here it is asking you some questions. No need of checking all these boxes. This one we can check. So what it does, it discards old builds. Like in Jenkins, if you keep on building stuff, it does not delete the older things. Like today I checked out this code and built an artifact out of it. Artifact means the binary. Just as I said, like if you check out Java code and build it, it becomes a jar file. So Jenkins stores that one. Tomorrow you build it again, Jenkins stores that one. So it keeps on storing those stuff and never deletes it. So if you do not define a policy, that server would get filled up. So there should be a policy defined by the company that we will store 15 artifacts, or we'll store stuff for 3 months, things like that. So that is defined by the company. So it's a good practice to discard older builds and keep how much you need. I mean, you cannot, what is the use of keeping old code from 5 years or old artifacts from 5 years? You can keep just 3 months or something, so that if something goes wrong, you can go back and retrieve an older version, because we already have a version control here. So no need of this much of redundancy, but still, to clear some space, this log rotation and build rotation is required. So how many days you want, you can write 90 days, or you can write how many builds to keep, means how many times it is triggered is counted as one. So every time this job runs, it counts the number as one build. So say I want to keep 100 builds, so it will keep 100 builds. Okay, but I'm leaving it blank. Why? Because I already told I don't care how many builds are there, but after 3 months start deleting the older ones. So whichever file, I mean the build becomes older than 3 months, it deletes it. So last 3 months data will be there. So this is done. Next, GitHub project. If there is a URL of your GitHub project, you can give it. No need to do anything here at this point. I'll tell you later on when this will be needed. Build requires lockable resources. If you check this, it will lock all the servers when this build is going on. So it won't interfere. I mean, so that nothing interferes with this build. This is also normally not required, because in Jenkins, if you have a lot of resources, like lots of CPU, RAM, everything, then you don't need, you can run multi-threaded jobs. Like someone is running example website and someone is running shopping cart website at the same time on Jenkins. So you can run both the jobs together. So if I lock it, then that other job will have to wait till this resource is freed. So no need to take all this. Disable project. If you don't want to continue with this project, disable it. Throttle builds, it will run slowly and complete it instead of running it quickly. So that keeps the server from getting overloaded. Project is parameterized. If you take this, it will ask for user input before going in. So say I want to, like when someone is building the job, I want the user to say yes or no or something like that. Then the parameterized option has to be selected and parameters are to be added. Like you will give them a choice, yes or no. So they will choose yes or no and then move on. So these are all advanced steps. We'll come to that later. Concurrent builds, I already said, like multiple builds can happen at a time if you check this. So normally bare minimum how much is needed, we are doing that today. That's why we have this simple example today. So you write this, define it, and then move on to the next section, source code management, the SCM, which we're talking about. So this SCM is about defining your GitHub. This is the step where your Jenkins will connect to your repository. So you copy your path to your repo. Go here. Our repo is Git because it is GitHub. So select this. Put the repository URL. Okay. Done. Credentials, no need to give. Credentials will only be needed when the repo is a private repo. So next time we do a complex pipeline, we will add a private repo here and we'll do it. So then I'll show you how credentials of GitHub are added here and how we go about doing that part. So for now, because we are doing a simple example of a pipeline, we added a public repo, so no need of credentials. Just add this and move on. Then here you can define which branch to checkout. So I am checking out the master branch. If you are working on a development branch and your site has a develop branch here, then you can use the develop. You can just change this and write develop. So whatever. So we can name the branches on that particular branch specifier. So we are using the master branch. So I put master back again. No need to do anything. Build triggers and all these will come when you will do those advanced pipelines. Like these are scenarios. Like if something happens, then this will trigger. So those situations and scenarios can be defined here. Okay. If you want automatic triggers, if you want to build on a certain time, like someone put some code here. I told you earlier, like in DevOps, you can automate builds. Like someone, as soon as he commits code, the build will start. How that happens? Here we will define that if there is a GitHub trigger, then we will have a build trigger here. So that means as soon as someone does something on GitHub, like someone changes the name or puts a new code, it triggers a build on Jenkins. So Jenkins will start to build it. Okay, now we are just doing it manually. It's a simple pipeline, so we are not going into anything. Build environment, nothing. We are not building anything today. We are just checking out the code and doing the first step. So this would be it. You don't have to do anything. Code is checked. You can just add a step to execute a shell. So what did I do? Build step, execute shell. Shell means a command. So I can just write echo. I can just say something. Code was checked out. Like if the above step happens successfully, I'll see this message. Successfully. So if this will echo, we can also show the code here. So we will again echo. Here's the code. So it will print this line. I'm doing this just to make it look good and all. So this is actually, even if you don't do these steps, it will work. But why are we doing this? Just to understand like what's going on. So I'll just do a ls command to list whatever the code is there. It will show that code. Okay, it will check out the code, it will run this command to list the code, and we will see the outcome. So let's see what happens. So we are done with the simple pipeline. Apply it, save it. Try these steps. Like when you have your virtual machine ready, try these steps. This is your first step to Jenkins, so try this out. So we have a project ready called example website. The code is there in GitHub. So the code will come into Jenkins and it will show up in Jenkins. So that means we have successfully run the project. So how to do that? Once that definition is done, like we added the job, filled up that form and saved it. Now you can run this build now. So you will see one build has been triggered. What is going on? If you click here, you see a console. Console will show up. What do we see in the console? That user DevOps started. I told you DevOps gives you accountability. So you see who user was running this. What did it do? It checked out code from GitHub example website. So it did all this stuff, and then we got our message, this one, hooray, code was checked out. That means we are successful. So now then it echoed this line, and all that code is here. You can see readme, this CSS, whatever it was here. So it has now been checked out to Jenkins, and the result is success. So that means we have successfully checked out our Jenkins build. If we made some mistake, then the build will fail. Okay, for example, if you write the GitHub URL wrong or something like that, then if you build it, it will show a red dot there near the build. For example, I add something here, something like this. This is not there, so it will fail. Let's see what happens. So I build it again. You can see there's a red dot, so it has failed. That means this job has failed. So how do we trace what happened? This is error fetching from remote repo. So that means there is something wrong with the repo address. So that is how you find errors, fix errors. So if I fix it again, I remove that wrong URL, it will again start working. So we'll do that, and that will conclude today's session. And then we move on to learn something more in the next session, day after, and then we will probably learn about Jenkins is done. So we'll learn about Docker, so that you will be able to know how to do the CD part of the pipeline. And then we will come up and do another exercise on Jenkins for doing the CI and CD part again. So till now, you just install Jenkins and get these things done, and create multiple projects, create multiple jobs, and keep playing around with all that. Okay. So I am just removing the wrong address which I wrote and just trying to run it once again to show that it is working fine. So you see, build number 3 has passed. Everything was fine again. So that is how these jobs are working. Now, if you go to the main screen, you will see that job. See, this job is ready. And here you see the status. If the status is always successful, there is a icon of the sun. If the status fails, there is a cloud here. Okay. So that, I mean, from first glance, you can tell that whether this job is passing or failing. So that's why this symbol actually. So what is our stability? Sometimes it failed, sometimes it passed, because we ran 3 times and it failed once and 2 passed. So 1 out of the 3 failed. So that's why it's mixed here. Similarly, if I add another job, it will show up here. So you will have a list of jobs in the end of the day. Okay. So for example, if I just add another job number 2, whatever, I mean, this is the project name, or let's name it shopping cart, our favorite project. So we put it here, and we put any other repository or the same repository with the development branch. We can do that too. And here you choose Git. Here you choose the old builds thing, 90 days or whatever is permitted in that company. Here in the repo, this can be any repo. I'm choosing this because this is a lightweight, like just 5-6 files are there in this repo, so it happens quicker. But in original, whatever the size of the repo is, that will be checked out. So this one we have checked. For example, in this project, I want the develop branch. So we write develop here, and I'm not doing the additional step. I'll just check out and just to demonstrate. If I build, the same thing will happen. It'll check out the code and keep it here in Jenkins. Okay, whenever we are doing this, actually these commands are being run in which server? In our Jenkins server, that Linux server. Actually, the thing is happening inside this server. In which folder is that operation happening? It's happening in the workspace. If you click here, you can see that code. See, those code which were in GitHub has been pulled into this workspace. So this is where the entire operation is happening. One more fact that I should tell you. Where is that folder in the server? Here you can see it here, but if I want you to see that folder, it would be in var lib Jenkins workspace, and then the project name shopping cart. That is where these files are. See, readme, css, this cell.sh, all this. So actually in the server, this is the path where this workspace is being created. So whenever you create a new project, inside this path, that project name will be created and the project will actually run from there. So this is not needed because we don't bother where it is creating, but just for your knowledge, in case something happens, it is not finding these files there, you can go to the server and check out whether the files are there. But those are edge cases. But for now, you just remember this is how you create jobs. This is how you connect to GitHub, check out code and run the jobs. So that completes our hands-on. And so today we did a great job of learning what Jenkins is, how to install it, and we created some simple jobs, connected those jobs to repositories from GitHub. We checked out code from GitHub and we ran those jobs in order to do this sequence automatically. Going ahead, we'll learn more about CD part of the CI/CD pipeline. We'll learn about Docker. We'll learn about how to deploy things to server, how to have a pipeline that is defined by parameters and all other advanced tasks. Hope you'll benefit from this session. Have a great day and keep learning. Thank you.